What if your next breakthrough in planning and goal setting doesn't come from doing more, but from noticing more? In this episode, we're going to explore how presence, posture, and possibility can transform the way that you approach change. Y'all, it's not just mindset, it's an embodiment, it's attention, it's the space where strategy meets self-awareness. Let's do this. Welcome to Plan Goal Plan, the podcast where ambition meets balance. I'm Danielle McGew. I'm a professor, speaker, mom, recovering overachiever, and self-leadership coach for high-achieving women. At the intersection of research, practice, and play, I discovered a path to planning and goal setting that's bold, balanced, and sustainable. Together, we'll reclaim your time, empower your goals, and create a life where you thrive at work and at home. Grab a pen. Let's get started. Hey y'all, before I get into the nitty gritty of today, which I'm really excited about, I wanted to offer a few updates. So in a previous episode, I explained that my kiddos, we're going through some stuff right now. And I really struggled with how much of this stuff I share with you all, because a lot of it is about my kids and their own health journeys. And I, sort of struggle with, honoring their privacy while at the same time letting you all know the nitty-gritty details of navigating it all, and to let you all know that I am a person who has lifey stuff too. And so as a bit of an update, my daughter started her dyslexia testing on Monday. When she reads, she sees colors behind words and letters move on her. And so I think there's a strong possibility that dyslexia is something that she has. It is, for her, probably a visual disorder more than a verbal disorder. There's a huge spectrum of dyslexia. And so, she's really bright. She has a wild vocabulary. She retains information really well. And so hopefully we're going to get some answers that might put us in a position where we can provide her with the support that she needs so that she can keep learning and growing. She also has had some GI issues. If you've been listening, you might know that we are dairy and gluten-free in our house. And we also have histories of Crohn's, ulcer colitis, and celiac in our family. And so we've been really attuned to her different GI issues. Well, we are able to get into Iowa's Children's Hospital, which is in Iowa City, which is about an hour and a half from where we live. And so we made the trek up there on Thursday. The good news is that she has a funky shaped colon that, while it is funky shaped and causing some issues, it does not require surgery, but it is going to require us to test out a few different possible solutions. So that was actually really good news. We are also able to get my son in at the end of October into a hematologist to figure out what's going on with his blood clotting. So it has, you not only hold the emotional weight of a parent kind of worrying for your kiddo, but also just navigating all of the appointments and, making the appointments and figuring out school around the appointments, talking your kids, the emotional labor of preparing your kids for these appointments that sometimes might be uncomfortable for them is its own thing. So I just wanted to update you all a little bit with that. And I also wanted to say I'm so grateful that I have these practices of planning and goal setting that help me check in with myself, that help me organize my time, and have over time really allowed me to move more gently through the chaos of life, through the moments that are hard. And they still are hard, but I will say that I feel like I can move through them with more clarity, with more presence, with more peace of mind, because I have been putting in the reps with this work. And so when I thought about today and when I wanted to share with you, I decided to veer from the plans that I have for what each episode is going to be. And instead, I wanted to share with you just kind of 3 lessons, 3 concepts that have been, maybe heavy on my heart lately. They are things that I am learning through, and they are related to my planning and my goal setting. So the first thing that I wanted to share with you is the concept of presence. Really the art of paying attention. So I have always been fascinated with presence. Amy Cuddy had a book by the name of Presence. I think it came out in maybe 2012, around then. And I've been fascinated by people who have presence on stage. I've always been fascinated by people that when you meet them, you feel different in their presence. I've also been kind of curious about the relationship between this sort of elusive presence that people seem to hold and being present, paying attention, and the practice of paying attention. A lot of times we'll hear versions of paying attention being the first step toward transformation. Awareness is the key. We must have awareness first. We might say awareness is the first step. We need people to be aware of the problem, or self-awareness is the first step to personal transformation. So we have different ways of saying that paying attention matters. And in the context of planning and goal setting, I don't think of presence as this like passive thing, right? I actually think of it as data collection. When I talk about planning, I talk about it as not just you writing down what's going to happen in the future and organizing it so that you aren't scattered and, feeling all willy-nilly about life, but that it is also a place for you to collect data on yourself. How am I spending my time? When I do these activities, what kind of energy am I able to bring to it? How do I feel afterwards? Is it draining my energy or giving me energy? Why do I keep writing these things down on my to-do list and not doing them? What's going on there? So, for me, there is this moment before strategy where, self-awareness sharpens and the mind listens more than it speaks. And I think that this presence is foundational. It allows us to notice what is, not just what we want to be, which I think, I love future self stuff. And so I kind of want to talk about, a few different ways that presence has been showing up in my life. It's kind of interesting. I'm seeing some patterns. It keeps coming up in conversations that I'm having. So I'm in TEDx speaking training right now. I was an alternative for University of Northern Iowa's TEDx. I'm not going to be on stage this year. I'm kind of trying to decide if I'm going to be applying to other TEDx's or if I want to wait and be on UNI's stage if they do the event again next year. So I've been taking some workshops, and one was on, the power of presence. And it was really, really just a beautiful workshop. And Brian Miller, who is one of my coaches, brought in their primary coach, and she was wonderful. It's about the speaker's presence and how do you sort of embody presence. And one of the things that was interesting to me in that, we might think about, is this connection between somebody's presence and their ability to be present, fully attuned to the room, sensing what's needed in a moment. And I was fortunate. I got to speak at a Dress to Success event earlier in October, which is a really amazing organization. And I loved the people that were there and the energy that was brought to the room. And in preparation, I kept telling myself, Danielle, you know this. You know this. Trust that you know this and just show up and do the things that you need to do to be deeply present so that it's not just about preparation, but being present. And so I've kind of been experimenting, and it went really well. And I was so sort of struck by the power of just being deeply present and to what you can bring to a room when you prioritize that. And so I've been experimenting with radical presence. I've been experimenting with trusting my preparation is already integrated and then releasing it in the moment. And the shift in performance when I stop gripping so tightly to outcomes and instead inhabit space fully. It has been really profound because presence is not about control. It's really about connection to yourself and the willingness to be connected to others in the moment. So the second thing that has really been emerging for me is posture and this embodied mindset. So you hear me use the word posture, like what's your posture towards this? And I kind of got curious because I was like, I really like the word posture and I use it a lot. And yet I've always found mindset to be a little elusive for me. Or like, I don't know, I resist mindset stuff. So I realized I have this bias towards action. I'm in a field, performance studies, that is very behavioral based. I like to take action quickly that usually benefits me, but sometimes gets me in a little bit of a mess. But mindset work sometimes can frustrate me. It can feel a little abstract for me. It can feel disconnected from movement, or it feels like, I don't know, sometimes like not enough. I remember when I was starting my business, y'all, I've never been interested in business. I've never been interested in entrepreneurship. Like, this was never on my bucket list. So I knew nothing about it. This is like not something that I read about. This is not something I knew nothing, y'all. And so anyway, like, I should probably read some about this. I should learn some. And I would get so frustrated because I'd listen to these like business podcasts and they talk all about mindset. And I was like, y'all, I want strategy. Like, enough. Like, I get the mindset stuff. I like want some strategy, and what I realized is that, yeah, like, I really like this word posture. And what I realized is that the word posture shifts something for me. When instead of talking about, well, what's my mindset about something? If I think about, like, well, what's my posture towards something? It's not just what I think, it's like how I hold myself. It's in relation to my thoughts, challenges. So, like, unlike mindset, I think that posture we recognize as an embodiment is a physical metaphor that carries some action in it. I was having a really amazing conversation with someone recently about just rest. And those moments where you're like, I'm resting, but I never feel rested. You can binge Netflix, you can go for a hike, you can read a book, you can even just have some time off, but like it's like you're so deeply tired and burnout that even the things that should feel light feel heavy. Almost like you're technically resting, but internally you're like clenched, you're anxious, you're planning, you're tense. And what's so interesting to me is I was thinking about what it means to have a posture towards certain activities that can feel like work, to have a posture of rest towards them. How can we have a posture of restfulness even while actively working? And, I was thinking about, doing the dishes after dinner used to feel so hard for me. Getting myself to do it felt like I was dragging myself through sand. And I did a few things, like I'd time myself and I'd be like, Danielle, that was 5 minutes. You can handle that. But it would still be like an unpleasant 5 minutes. And over time, doing the dishes now almost feels restful. There's some nights where I don't want to do them, but for the most part, like, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna do the dishes. There's none of the grittiness, the sandiness of it that there was before. And so I've been thinking about this word posture and our posture towards, and how that feels to me a little bit different than just talking about mindset work. And I love the questions that it can elicit. Like, what is my posture towards uncertainty? What's my posture towards success, towards failure, towards other people's expectations? What's my posture going into this meeting? And I think that posture is this interface between intention and embodiment. And I'm pretty flippin' excited by what's emerging as I'm thinking through this. And then my final P, because I felt like I needed to have three, and P's are nice, is possibility. And I flippin' love possibility. And I think that what opens up when presence meets posture is possibility. It's not just abstract optimism, but it's grounded sense of what could emerge when we're aware and attuned. And that possibility is what keeps planning from being just logistics and gives rest its generative power. When we're present, our posture is aligned and possibility floods in, not because we chase it, but because we're actually in a position to receive it. So how do we deepen these 3 Ps? I want to leave you with some action steps that you can take this week, today, this month, and I want to invite you to experiment, to play with these things. The first is just micro practices of presence. I want you to try 60 seconds of pure presence, maybe before a key meeting or a big moment, or even just like welcoming your kids home from school or asking your husband how his day was. There's no agenda here. You don't have to do anything but notice. And you could make it a ritual. I love my rituals. It builds this attentional muscle. The next thing is embodied journaling. So instead of just writing what you're thinking of, I want you to also note how your body feels when you think it. So notice how your posture shifts and start connecting thought and form. Third, let's play with some posture experiments. I want you to pick a theme for the week. Maybe you're like, what if I move through this week with a posture of trust, a posture of curiosity? And I want you to track how that subtly shifts your behaviors and perceptions. Another one might be that posture of rest. If you have a really busy week, right? And there you can't, you ain't changing that, right? How can you still move through the week with a posture of rest? What shifts? And then also the fourth sort of bonus one is possibility mapping. If you feel stuck or overplanned, I want you to map out some wild possibilities, not just practical steps, but the edge of comfort ideas, right? And really let this feed creative planning. As we're wrapping up, if you're in a place of stuckness, I want to invite you to go to my website, plangoalplan.com. If you look on there, there's going to be a stuck assessment. You can also go to plangoalplan.com/stuck. And what this is going to do is this is going to take you through a quiz to help you name your stuckness. And this is important because, how I was saying that the first step is awareness. When we can really name the ways that we are stuck, we can also start getting really specific about the ways that we wiggle out of it. We can be more intentional with our wiggles. We can make sure that our wiggles are aligned with our stuckness. And so I invite you to take that quiz. It's super fast and it is going to give you a ritual that you can start doing to help wiggle you out of your stuckness. Y'all, I so believe in the power of presence and being present. I believe that there's something magical happening with the concept of posture instead of mindset. And finally, I hope that you're finding spaces of possibility when you're able to inhabit both. Until next time, I hope that your planning brings you clarity. I hope that your goal setting helps you dream. And I hope that you are bold and balanced and ultimately well. Be well, friends. If this podcast has inspired you, guided you, or just made you laugh, the number one way that you can thank me is by leaving a written review for the show over on Apple Podcast. I'm seriously tickled every time that I hear from you all, so pop onto Instagram and follow Plan Goal Plan and digital message me. I want to say hello. I want to geek out about all things planning and goal setting. Keep sensing the possibilities, y'all.